right now.
We are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Week 13 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SIN YouTube channel. Mike, Dan, Mark with you, gentlemen. Happy December. Mark, from our conversation before, it sounds like you need 3 or 4 blankets to keep yourself warm.
Oh yeah, I do not do well in the winter. I am a non-winter guy, and I've grown up in the Northeast for 45 years. Says a lot about me.
So you're not part Eskimo.
Probably some of my insides are, yes.
Dan, how you doing?
I'm okay. This combo right here is better than watching the Jets lose in heartbreaking fashion. So that's what I'll do today.
Well,
But
we will talk about the Jets in some capacity today because they did something that certain people may agree with. I disagree with. We'll get into it later. We'll talk about Frank Reich in a little bit, but we'll start with Thursday night. We'll recap Thursday night, which saw Mark's beloved Dallas Cowboys beat the Seattle Seahawks by a score of 41-35. Dak Prescott, 29-41, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tony Pollard chipped in a rushing touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, another great game, over 100 yards and a touchdown on 12 receptions. For Seattle, Geno Smith threw for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and a rushing touchdown. And DK Metcalf, 134 yards and 3 touches in the game. We will dive into a secondary portion of the game in a minute. But Mark, your overall views on the Cowboys going to, I think it's 9-3 now.
Yes, the Cowboys moved 9-3. The Seahawks dropped to 6-6. This was a game that was really, and always has been, was throughout the years between Seattle and Dallas. It's always been a very competitive, very hard-hitting game, and usually very high scoring. And before I even talk about Dallas, I want to give it up to Geno Smith because he pinpointed passes that were top notch, especially if you want to call one out, the one where the short slant and he goes 75 yards for the touchdown. That ball was fitted between 2 Cowboy defenders. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. And he toasted Bland. It left a very dirty taste in everybody's mouth, even though Duran did come back and get a interception later in the game. Needless to say, Dallas comes back and wins this game in the end of the fourth quarter due to some bad choice decisions of going on 4th and 1. And when will teams stop realizing that every defense knows you're going to run on 4th and 1? I mean, come on, let's get a little bit more creative. The tush push is going to work and for some places, but everybody runs on 4th and 1. That's why it stopped so much. CeeDee Lamb, 12 for 116, but the player of the game was Jason Ferguson. This guy has been given a task.
Jake Ferguson.
Yeah. Sorry, Jake Ferguson. Jake
from State Farm.
Yeah, it's Jake from State Farm Ferguson. Had probably his most dominant game because he's been asked to replicate Jason Witten and Dalton Schultz in his second year. And he has pretty much come close to completing one of those 2 tasks. Dalton Schultz, unfortunately, is now out and injured. He will miss the rest of the season for Houston. But Ferguson looks like Schultz, and it's starting to turn that way. And I like what Dallas has finally decided to do and go with the West Coast offense and let Dak just throw the ball. And you run the ball when you need to, even though they ran it 20 times. This team is now an equally balanced offense. The defense has a little bit of issues the last couple of weeks. Special teams are special teams. The Dallas Cowboys have the game of the week next week, and we'll talk about that later on.
Dan?
I caught a glimpse of Thursday night. I was busy. I had a lot of work to do in the evening. Unfortunately, when you work night side news, it kind of sucks. But here's what I noticed about the game, and something that New Yorkers like me are not used to, and that's that there were no punts in the game
Yeah.
because these teams can score, and if you score, you don't punt, and there is a lot of scoring in that game. So it was a big time offensive match. Not much of a big defense until like the very end of the game when Dallas got the stop, and they were able to march forward to victory there. I was impressed by Dallas. That was not a tough. That was a very tough Seattle team. That Seattle team is a very good team. I know they may not have the greatest team. They may not be on the best stretch of their season right now, but I feel like Seattle is always a tough matchup. Gino, who's been excellent at quarterback these past 2 years, makes it even harder, and Dallas has to work harder too. So that was probably a challenge for Dallas because they gave up like 35 points. But what I will say about Dallas, and we're poised, and Dak is just slinging it, and he was ready for the moment.
Yeah, Dak continues his fine play. I want to give credit to someone who, explains this very well on ESPN. Because back when Dallas was kind of scuffling, Mark, before the bye,
Yep.
ESPN's Dan Orlovsky said they have to feature CD Lamb as a number one. And it feels like since the bye week, CD Lamb has risen to the
And
occasion.
and you're 100% right. And that comment was needed because CD Lamb is on the depth chart at the none, but he wasn't being treated like it. He wasn't getting the head amount of receptions. He's a team player, and it's not him on the sideline saying, "Give me the damn ball," as we have seen many a different wide receiver do over their time, whether it be in Dallas, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, whatever. I think Mike McCarthy's changes to that comment have been absolutely on point now that CD Lamb is averaging 10 receptions a game. But what that's doing is that's opening up the game for Brandon Cooks now. And now you're starting to see his emergence. Before you know it, they're going to get what they want, and they're going to get one-on-one coverage on one of the two of them, because then you throw in Pollard back in the mix. They got a lot of weapons for this team. They got to get it out of their head that Philadelphia is just a better record than them. That's all.
Yeah, so Lamb has played well. I'd like to see Pollard get a few more touches, maybe as receptions out of the backfield. But that's just something I look at. Defense, listen, you're going to have games where you give up 30. I'm not really concerned, despite them not showing up for my fantasy team. That's a whole nother conversation. But when they needed it, Micah Parsons made the play to get up in Gino's face on that fourth down to seal the game.
He wasn't even covered.
No, he came in unblocked.
Yeah.
Listen, Seattle, quick memo. There's one guy on Dallas's defense you gotta take away. He's gonna beat your offensive lineman one-on-one probably, but you gotta at least get a hand on Micah Parsons. I mean, untouched right in Gino's face. And you said it, Gino played, I thought, the best game, not only of the season, maybe of his career. He was that good on Thursday.
Dan's going to go right from me off of this. I liked Gino when he was in New York. I really did. And Dan got to watch him play, so Dan has a little bit more info on him, so I'm going to pass it off to Dan.
Well, Gino has always been very mobile. his accuracy is actually better now than it was before. He just never really got a chance in New York. You know, I know people are going to point to years 1 and 2, but you know, then year 3 came in, he got punched in the jaw by some moron that's no longer in the league, and then you know, Fitzpatrick has the career of his life, and then they pivot to that, and you know, he never really truly got a chance to be the long term guy. But yeah, no, look, Gino, you know, obviously has uh he's looked a whole lot better. He's gotten a whole lot better in his 10 plus years in the league. I think it's like year 11, I think.
Which is just weird.
Yeah, I know, right? And dude, the dude's killing it, man. I mean, he's obviously more mobile. I mean, not as mobile as he used to be, but he's moving around a lot better. And his confidence is there too. And the fact that he's putting up like, you know, moving the offense and putting up 35 points is absolutely stellar. Like this is something that I would have loved to have seen from a Jet quarterback. And stuff. So
And the thing he gets to work with is he gets to work with one of the best receiving
actual,
trios in the game.
you know, I know he dropped the pass, but Lockett, you know,
Lockett's a stud.
he's a beast, man.
DK's a stud. And listen,
DK's
Jack
top 5 in
Smith and
football.
Jigba's turning some heads right now. Past couple of weeks, he's coming on strong at the midway point of his rookie year.
Yeah, and I hate to say this about Seattle, but you have the 3 pieces right there. I mean, unfortunate you lost Kenny Walker because of oblique injury. Mets fans are used to those, but you know, this Seattle team just needs an upgraded quarterback, and I hate to say it. I mean, I like what Gino's doing.
Well, yeah, no, he's a stopgap. There's no way he's going to be there for the future. I think even he knows that.
I like him so much that I don't want to see him out of the NFL.
But it's why he signed the 3-year deal in the offseason. He didn't get crazy money. He's making, I think it's $25 million a year,
which is
by quarterback terms, nothing.
Bottom level, low one.
So, argument say I don't know where Seattle would draft at the top of my head, but if one of the quarterbacks were to fall to them, they might say, you know what, we may take the quarterback. Gino plays next year, and you get to sit on the bench and learn. Well, they can figure this out.
Well, that quarterback class can be fired, dude. Like even second rounders are going to be.
It's looking 14 or 15 right now, Mike, is where they would be.
Yeah, so argument's sake, maybe a guy like JJ McCarthy winds up in that area, and they sit him for a year if he comes out. I'm not sure. Maybe Penix, if they like Penix, they would have the home field advantage if they wanted to get Penix.
The draft is something we will get much more into as weeks go by because it would start getting more and more important as we see where the draft numbers and teams.
And some of us love the draft.
Some of us. You should be doing the draft for ESPN, Mike.
Listen, Mel Kiper, if you're listening, and I know that you are, hit me up.
He's the one who puts together the drafting and gets us all in line. So,
all right. So that's the game portion. There was another portion that we have to talk about, and it's Mark's favorite subject.
It's laundry day.
The referees, because there was a combined 19 penalties in this game for 257 combined yards.
You know, I understand teams are going to make infractions, false starts. You know, you get deep to go off sides, illegal motions. You're going to hear the occasional holding. And yeah, obviously there was a couple of very big pass interference caused because of the amount of yardage. But when you heard penalties being called for the most pettiest infractions that you wouldn't even see the top zebras throw, this was them trying to get noticed, saying, hey, look, we're doing our job. Watch what we're doing. No, you turned the first half into 2.5 hours. Then halftime. Then at least the third and fourth quarter moved by a little bit quicker. And that it only kept the game to 4 hours. I haven't watched a 4-hour football game all year. So 19 penalty. There has to be a lot more to go over.
They had the over-under on flags.
Oh, God.
But here's my thing, and there's a couple of things to this. One, and Mark, you can confirm this. Back in the stages of what we talked about earlier, before we hit live, the 80s and the 90s, when Dan and I were just wee little lads, they let them play a little bit.
Pass interference wasn't called as much. Holding wasn't called as much. No, if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, San Francisco 49ers, and the Cowboys of those 3 decades, 70s, 80s, 90s, and you go back and watch some of the games, you as a fan now would say, oh my God, you're telling me there was no holding on that play? I mean, look at him. He's got him by his jaw. He's holding him by the jaw. Isn't that illegal hands to the... No, because penalties have evolved over the last 20 years, that there's a penalty now that they're considering of having the quarterback only wear flags.
And the other part that drives me insane, can we go back to pass interference being 15 yards as opposed to the spot foul?
Again, I would say it would have to be, you and I had that quick talk, and then I want your opinion on this after. I had said, I absolutely agree with you, but it depends on how flagrant the pass interference is. If he by accidentally bumps into him of that, you're not going to give him a spot foul of 47 yards. But if you're getting jumped into and your hand getting up, there has to be a level barrier.
The one problem I have with it is I don't understand how you could penalize a defender on underthrown balls.
Okay.
That's my biggest beef, because the defender's trying to run with the receiver, trying to turn his head to the ball. It's not his fault the ball's underthrown by the quarterback.
It also depends on, whether he actually, because, you can still interfere in an underthrow ball. It's just a matter of whether you turned on time and stuff. Like, if you turned on time and you stopped the play, that's one thing. There are some of these defenders on underthrown balls that literally, like, body slam these receivers. You have to penalize for that.
Right. So you got to have a different level, I guess. And again, that's why they have the illegal contact. It's...
I mean, the thing is, illegal contact is pass interference, but they'll just say, well, it's not long enough for pass interference, so we'll just give the 5 yards.
5 yards and an automatic first. I mean, if you do that with pass interference, real pass interference, then there's going to be pass interference every down. So
yeah, exactly. But also, you can call holding every play. Like we get it.
Right.
We don't watch the games, and the fans don't pay money to watch the referees, despite what they may think. Welcome to our TED Talk. My one other thing, and this is going to be quick, on challenges, I don't need Gene Steratore or Terry McCauley or Dean Blandino explaining to me why a call is right or wrong. I need them to explain it to the guys who are actually making the call, why they're right or wrong.
Thank you for saying it.
And then you can relay it to me.
Yeah, no, clearly they've made an industry out of these officials. Like they really have. And to a point where you have the Gene Steratores and the Mike Pereira. By the way, hopefully Mike Pereira is okay.
Yes.
That to a point where they are like literally trying to defend the refs, on every aspect of each god awful call they make.
Yeah. So refs, we're watching you, refs. Today's a big day for you guys, despite it being rainy here in the Northeast. All right. So Thursday night, the Cowboys moved to 9-3. Seattle moves to 6-6.
That NFC, just like that.
The NFC wildcard picture behind the Cowboys is as
It's like 7,
it's
8 teams
wild.
all within one game of each other.
It's so insane. The Giants have a
Can
chance at the wild card.
you imagine if the Giants? I know they lost the 2 Dallas games by a lot too little, but can you imagine if that Seattle Giants game has a different result? We're talking about the Giants being a game out in the loss column. Like, oh, it's a game of interest, man.
By
But
the way, Mark, I also want to give you a shout out. So I want to congratulate the Cowboys on advancing to the divisional round of the playoffs, because if the Cowboys are locked in at the 5 and have to play the winner of the the NFC South,
So that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
that's as good as a first round bye.
I think it's really. I mean, look, it's done in baseball. It's on in a top team in each division gets a playoff spot, and that's how it's done. I understand it, but I'm sorry, you have to be better than 9 wins to be able to be considered for the playoffs. That's what I think the new rule needs.
The winner of that division gets a home playoff game,
right? Or they get a turkey, or they get a free turkey to take home and cook.
I mean, Thanksgiving's over. I'm more of a Christmas ham kind of guy, but
a good turkey or a good goose,
or some of us like to find a good Chinese place on Christmas and party that way. All right, that's Thursday night football. We kind of talked at the beginning of this, and we were talking about this before we went live, so we'll just jump into this. Frank Reich was fired by the Panthers. He's the second coach to be fired on the season after Josh McDaniels, and we know how that goes. With Frank Reich out, the Panthers are 1-10 on the season. And Mark, the three of us were having this interesting conversation before we went live about. So I'll let you go first here.
You have an ownership that forced Frank Reich to draft Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. It wasn't Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud. We all know it now. It's what he wanted. But ownership told him he was to take Bryce Young, so he did what ownership told him to, and he took Bryce Young. So then he's got a completely different plan now he's got to go with, because they are 2 different quarterbacks. And he's trying to retool this team and get this team ready, and trying to work with bringing in the most ridiculous running back for the price that he got to help make up for no running back. Miles Sanders was not the issue here, and was not a helpful issue either. He's been an injured problem. And what happens? They go to 1-8, then 1-9, and then they give Frank Reich the heave ho because it's his team that went 1-8. No, I'm sorry. I do not blame him, even though, yes, you can't blame anybody else but the coach. I'm sorry. I know that's what they say. I do not blame him here. He will be coaching very soon somewhere. I can.
And if not, it's the head coach is the offensive coordinator.
Offensive coordinator somewhere, yeah, for sure. Hopefully it's the Jets, because they need an offensive coordinator, a real one,
right?
And stuff. No, the Panthers stink. The owner's not good either. Not a very nice guy. I feel bad for Frank Reich, because as much he wasn't coaching well either. But it's not like he was coaching a deep squad that he had. The players were just god awful. Like, that team is just really bad, historically bad. They're very much on their way to like a Cleveland Browns type season where they lose either all their games or the vast majority of their games, and they're staring at once again the number one pick, which I don't think they own.
They do not own.
Fine.
Yeah,
It goes to the Bears.
So, by the way, ownership and front office, they did that, not Frank Reich. So yeah, no, I feel horrible for the coach. He'll be an offensive coordinator somewhere, or at least a consultant. I think he's a good enough assistant coach where he can get a job somewhere. I really do think that. But yeah, no, this team stinks. I watched the Panthers. They do not look like a team that is competitive. Every week, they're either slow in the offensive game, defense is iffy. No matter who the quarterback is, I don't even think they can move the offense. By the way, since we have this trendy thing where we evaluate quarterbacks after 13 games, like y'all did with Zach Wilson in year 2, 13 games in. I think it's very fair to say that 13 games in with Bryce Young, we can start evaluating him. He stinks. He's terrible. He's not good. It doesn't mean that he won't be a good quarterback in the future. Maybe if the right coaches, I don't know, maybe even put him in the right system. But right now he's not playing well. But then you have a rookie in Houston that's kicking ass in CJ.
Lighting up the boards.
So I caution the Panthers to really, really think about what they're doing, and they better get it right, because if they don't get it right, then that's going to be years wasted with this whole group here.
And with that spot opening up, look for Kellen Moore, who's my automatic pick to become the next Carolina head coach.
He's been rumored. Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, has been rumored as well. The problem I have with firing Frank Reich is it Frank Reich's fault that this offensive line stinks?
No.
Is it Frank Reich's fault that you overpaid Miles Sanders, who hurt his hamstring, signing the contract?
No.
And then here's the other thing. We briefly touched on it. Dan, you said if they would have the number one pick if they owned it. Well, here's the problem. One, they don't own it. But then B, let's top this off. At the trade deadline, they were looking for a number one receiver. By the way, who'd they trade away in the same trade to get the number one pick last year in the draft? DJ Moore, who was their number one receiver. So the trade never made sense. I get it. You wanted Bryce Young. I really could care less. But if the head coach wants a specific guy, the head coach should get the guy he wants. That way he can mold it into what he wants. Not the owner, not the general manager, but apparently the general manager was on the side of Frank Reich. It's a whole nother conversation.
The team was a failure this year, basically.
Right. And listen, you can fail, and you're going to have years where you're not good. But this is also the same owner who I think is who's about to hire his 6th head coach. Yeah. Like Matt Rule was there, Steve Wilkes was there, amongst others. But the big thing for me is you can have dysfunction in a locker room. We've seen it before. But when the dysfunction comes from the top down, that's where you have the major problems. And that's where the Panthers are instantly kind of screwed, because they have an owner who's created these problems. And because he's a little too hands-on. And Mark knows all about hands-on owners.
Jerry Jones. However, Jerry's been vindicated. But
here's the thing, though. Jerry at least knows the game of football. He's not only played the game of football, he's a smart front office dude. Like, he gets how the game works. I don't think this guy knows how the game works.
No.
No,
No.
to Dan's point, Jerry Jones is probably the smartest businessman in sports. Having the Dallas Cowboys valued at $8 billion now, and that's 3 billion more than what the Yankees are, and that just says something about the two sports. But
It also has to do with like the
but I think
stadium as well, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
but to Dan's point, was a football guy. He came in, he knew what he wanted, he knew what needed to be changed. He was in part with everything. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, keep your mouth shut.
You know, let the football people handle the football.
Yeah.
And, listen, I'm not going to sit here and criticize Bryce Young and say this because this team just the Miles Sanders contract stinks. The offensive line stinks. The defense at times plays really well. The offense just doesn't do anything to the point where they get tired out.
Well, here's what Frank Reich needs to do. Frank, I know you're listening. I want you to go do this. I want you to go. I want you to get your best Hawaiian shirt you have. I want you to go get up on a car, stare at the stadium, pull up your shirt, and start dancing and do the truffle shuffle. That's what we want. I want this done, Frank. Challenge accepted and completed. Thank you very much.
Or if you want to hop on and talk to us, you can as well. Not while you're doing the truffle shuffle. That just sounds like a very tough multitasking assignment.
We could have Bill Murphy record while he's doing it. Bill's good at keeping the guy in the camera.
All right. So Frank Reich's the second guy to lose his job. We kind of went over hot seat stuff last week, but I just want opinion here. Who else for the rest of the year is probably coaching for their coaching career? Well, at least for this job.
My coach.
Okay.
See, I see where Dan's going to go with this, and I'm going to let him go.
No, I'm just saying in general because
now
he doesn't get the Rodgers pass.
He here's the thing. He's on the hot seat, but Woody Johnson's going to give him the pass because of the fact that Rodgers didn't play, because the quarterback situation was not good. By the way, reason why quarterback situation was not good was because one, Aaron Rodgers, and two, because the Jet coaches are just absolutely atrocious. They don't know how to coach and develop quarterbacks. So yeah, no, he'll get the pass, but his true colors are going to come out when Aaron Rodgers plays next year, and the offensive line still stinks, and the offensive coordinator still stinks, that Aaron Rodgers has to call his own damn plays. It's going to be a whole disaster. It's a disaster, dude.
The only thing I'll say off of what you said is Salah would return on one condition. He gets the Rodgers seal of approval. Because if Aaron Rodgers goes to Woody Johnson and says, that guy's not my coach,
yeah,
Salah's out.
But I think he does like Salah. That's the thing.
I happen to like Robert Saleh. I think he's a very smart coach who got dealt a bad hand. You lose your look. We've talked about it a million times, so I'm not going to really repeat the whole circle. You lose the whole focus of your entire offense, but you had no experience really at backup. Yeah, Zach Wilson's there, but he was unproven. If they had somebody, and he's playing today, I hate to say it, Dan, you can smack me when you see me. If they had old man Joe Flacco, I bet you they would have won more games than they would have lost. And as we know, Joe Flacco will be playing in Cleveland today.
Well, I would have re-signed Mike White, but yeah.
Even so, I wouldn't have had Wilson at the 2 no matter what.
Yeah.
When you go and you beg and plead during Aaron Rodgers' darkness retreat for him to come play for the Jets and see the light that is New York, And then you see the videos of guys like Sauce Gardner, Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson celebrating. That's the moment where Zach Wilson can't be back in that locker room
I agree.
because
And
he's lost the locker room at that point.
he has no respect on his team.
He's the Rodney Dangerfield of the New York Jets.
Which stinks because, again, I think with better coaching, he would have played better.
I don't disagree with you.
That's why I blame coaching. Also, better offensive line, but a lot of that was on injuries and stuff. But if the team was built better and coached better,
and then
the only reason why I'm blaming the coaching here, take a look at other teams with their issues. You mean tell me that Tommy DeVito is better than Zach Wilson?
Danny DeVito is.
That's coaching.
Poor kid.
Brock Purdy. You think Brock Purdy is actually good with a terrible team around him?
We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So that's a fair assessment, but
so coaching. I think if you had like a Doug Marrone type system or a Schottenheimer type system with Zach Wilson, I feel like, and Mark knows about Schottenheimer a little bit, I feel like Wilson will be in a better spot. Doesn't mean he'll be great. And again, not saying that he's the guy. He could very well be one of those like stopgaps until we actually get the real guy. And I totally would have been okay with that because I think the Jets need a better quarterback anyway. But I think the Jets would have fared better if they had better coaching around. But the biggest thing is that they did not have the true backup, which killed their season.
And the other thing I'll say on Saleh, and this has been a problem for the Jets for really his tenure, they're undisciplined.
Yeah.
They get way too many penalties called against them, and stupid ones at that.
And then not only are they undisciplined, Robert Saleh is too nice to them. He doesn't, and we're not saying to get into their face and be a abusive jerk, but you have to hold these players accountable if they're committing all these penalties. And he has not done that. So that's a massive strike on Robert Saleh.
And the one comment that struck me, this was weeks ago after the Charger debacle, was he said post-game, I thought the defense played well, the offense was okay, special teams can't give up a touchdown.
Yeah.
But special teams gave up one touchdown, 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
Your offense put up 6.
Exactly.
That is a problem. At some point, just unleash the fact that offensively, you are offensive to watch. Yeah. I don't care if it offends Nathaniel Hackett. I don't care if it offends Aaron Rodgers. Show some damn emotion.
Yeah,
you sound robotic every time you're at the podium.
And that's where it comes to the coaching. You know, he's not doing anything about it. It's as if we see the same script with Robert Saleh and his coaching staff. They come up with this game plan and they expect a different result every single time. It's the same type of game plan. And again, nothing has changed. Doesn't matter which quarterback you put in. You can put in Michael Vick, you can put in Brett Favre, you can put in, you know,
bring back Vinny Testaverde,
Vic McNabb, Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington, even the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Joe Montana, Joe Namath. You put in Staubach, you put in Rodgers. Like, I don't think this offense would succeed. The only one that will probably succeed more is Rodgers, and the only reason why is because that's his offense. But I don't know if this offensive line would even help that.
Would Alan Lazard drop passes help him?
No. And that's why his ass was benched. Also because he was playing soccer while at practice. So it's like, you know, screw you. But yeah, that's why I think Saleh needs to be on the hot seat. He'll get his pass, which I just can't understand why this coach continues to get a pass. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I do believe Saleh is going to get the pass.
All right, Mark, who would you say is coaching for their job the rest of the season?
Eh, you have to go to teams that are failing. So, you have to look at Cleveland, unfortunately. Cincinnati. I mean, most of the I'm calling out teams because these are the teams I want you to look at how good they are and what their records are. I don't want to just be the coach's name itself. So Cleveland, Cincinnati, how about Buffalo? It's just
Can I just go back to your Cincinnati point?
you may.
They're going to get a pass also because of the Burrow issue.
All right. Well, all right, fair enough.
And
But-
they did go to the AFC title game last year.
But still, and then you have to look at Buffalo.
Mhm.
These are teams and coaches that better start winning because one of them that our dear friend Nate Moser will be dropped through a table through because of is if the Bills do not make the playoffs.
And here's the thing about that. And Sean McDermott, I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a very good coach. When you kneel with 20 seconds left and 2 timeouts, that is just, to me, it's wimpy. You have 2 timeouts, 20 seconds, and Josh Allen. If he throws a long pick, Philly's kneeling on the ball, and you're going to overtime regardless. Take the shot. 13 seconds happened against you, and you act like it didn't.
Yep.
So, Ron Rivera is an easy answer too here. I think Brandon Staley's already out in LA after this year.
It's a shame for Riverboat because he was never given a good team in Washington. Never.
I actually think he's starting to get the team he needs and is going to stay on.
Yeah, but
I don't know. It's new ownership. That's the only reason why I think
Thank
he's
God
out.
for that.
if new ownership really wants him, if Josh Harris really wants him to stay, he's gonna stay. I don't know if I think he wants his own coach, and he has a right to get his own guy.
Yes, he does. Absolutely.
No, but Ron Rivera, look, and Rivera has not coached well this season, and we can all say that. But he has also never been given a good team. All of his teams have been sub 500 and mediocre at best his entire tenure, which is, that's not a good track record for any coach.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not fair to any coach. So I feel like hopefully they need to change the front office too. They need to change the front office and they need to have a better strategy moving forward. If it is with Riverboat Ron, it's with Riverboat Ron. But if it's not, everything has to change. You need to clean house. Because this Washington franchise continues to sink lower and lower and lower every year. The funny thing is, they have a promising quarterback with Sam Howell.
Yeah, Sam Howell's been a bright spot. By the way, most of the offense, like they have 2 solid receivers with Dotson and McLaurin.
I'm not really impressed with Dotson though. He's whack. But
Brian Robinson's had a
Thomas
pretty
as your
nice year in
tight
the
end.
backfield, but the offensive line stinks, and
Yes.
the defense is not great.
And I think Sam Howell working with Bieniemy. See, Bieniemy would be my top contender for him because he is a good play caller. He really is. If he just gets better production from the rest of the offense besides Sam Howell, that's a pretty damn good offense he has there.
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. The name I'm going to throw out there is Todd Bowles. And Dan, you know all about Todd Bowles.
He's terrible.
But here's my thing, and this is my memo to Tampa Bay. After Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, you knew Tom Brady wasn't going to last longer than another year. After Tom retires, you should have just blown that thing up. Restock it, draft it up, build it. If you build it, they will come. Mark, what baseball movie?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. It's Field of Dreams.
I'm kidding. Give me a break.
Come on. I didn't know if you
God,
had a
being
senior
a little
moment or not.
facetious here. Alta cacas.
Why would they bring that Field of Dream game back?
But,
Yes, it was Field of Dreams. I know it was Field of Dreams.
listen, I didn't know if you were having a senior moment. I was trying to keep you up.
Senior moment.
All right.
Another coach. What's another coach can throw out there?
Quickly, and then we'll just jump around into some other stuff we gotta hit.
We already said this. Stefanski.
Well, since we're talking coaches, let's talk about one coach that may or may be there for his coaching job next year, and that's Bill Belichick.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue because I got on the rundown.
Exactly.
More likely to return to New England, Belichick or Mac Jones.
It's going to be Bill Belichick.
Bill, 100%.
It's going to be Bill Belichick because here's my opinion on it. You talk Belichick, you talking coaches all time. So you're talking Lombardi, Landry, Shula, Bear Bryant. I mean, the list goes on. Parcells, and goes on. He is not walking off a field until he has that career victory win, which is not that far off.
I think he's 20 away or something.
Right.
Like
So
that.
that's 2 more seasons for him, possibly 3. Does he want to do it? No. Is he going to do it for that record? Yes. And Robert Kraft's going to back him the whole way until it happens. When it happens, the guy's going to throw the clipboard or the MacBook, slam it on the ground, take off the hoodie, and walk off the field and wave, and he's going to be done. He wants the record, and he should be given his right so to be able to try and eclipse it. Danny boy.
I really think that Bill Belichick should stay, but if he does, either get fired or whatever, whatever the arrangement they decide to do, because the Patriots would never fire. I want his last game to be with the New York Jets, absolutely giving him an ass. In Foxborough, because nothing would be sweeter than to say goodbye to Bill Belichick and knowing we ended our awful losing streak to the Patriots by kicking his ass.
Now, I believe, I'm just double checking this. Believe that's week 18. I believe the Jets go to Foxborough.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
His career there, that would be pretty dope.
That would be a hell of an article to be written.
I don't think either one's back there next year. I don't think Bill's back there because I think he's going to wind up coaching a different team, whether that's via trade or however they're going to work it. And Mac Jones, listen, I get what Robert Kraft was trying to do, trying to create the Kraft mac and cheese thing on the football field, but he's not any good.
No, Mac Jones. See, Mac Jones is being coached by better coaches than Zach Wilson did with the Jets. And he is worse.
He's a lot worse. And listen, part of it is New England, I think, has the worst skill position players in the league. But at some point, you got to show me something. Yeah. But Mac Jones has done nothing but regress since his rookie year.
Agreed.
And that's bad. It's bad mac and cheese. But so that's why I would go neither. So those are some coaches and some issues there in New England. Very quickly, Dan, before we get into the games today, the Aaron Rodgers practice window was open this week. Thoughts there really quickly, and then we'll dive into the games.
It's a selfish move by Rodgers. Rodgers, look, the best thing Rodgers could do if he really wants to be there for the team is to take a step back. If it was really a bad Achilles injury, by the way, I now question whether it was really that bad. But if it was really a terrible Achilles injury and he really wants to help the team, he would take a step back and wait till September or July, August, whatever. I don't care. You wait till the next season. That's my point. But he did not do that, and he's rehabbing the hell off. And now he's back at full practice and cleared for that at least.
He has not been cleared for contact,
Not
though.
cleared for contact. You're right. Here's my thing. And look, as much as I don't want Rodgers to play this season, if he's medically cleared to play football, play him. Because what's the worst that can happen? He may get injured again. Okay, well, if he gets injured again, tough shit. Excuse my language. I don't want him here anyway. But we have to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like in a full game with the actual offense out there, with this offensive system in mind, with Robert Saleh's coaching, with all these crap ass players that they keep throwing out there. I want to see Aaron Rodgers with the team that Zach Wilson had to deal with, that Tim Boyle had to deal with. I want to see this Aaron Rodgers with that team, this coaching system. And I want to see what works, what doesn't work by the end of the season. If Aaron Rodgers moving forward is going to be our quarterback, we have to see what he looks like so that we can address the actual issues in the offseason. And I also want to see, obviously if the issue is the offensive line or the issue is coaching, or if the issue is Aaron Rodgers.
All right.
So that's where I stand. But I understand where people are saying, hey, look, he needs to take a step back for the rest of the year. Yeah, I was thinking that too, until he actually started throwing the damn football and it looks good moving around. So I don't know.
All right, Mark, anything on Rodgers before we dive into the games?
I think Dan pretty much said it all. He covered it. My only quick bit is there's no reason to come back. You come back if the Jets have a definite playoff spot, then play them.
Well, don't play my fantasy. Do not play with my fantasy because I've already been thinking about playoffs.
All right. That's Rodgers. On to the games of today. Start with a big one in the AFC when you're talking wild card. Mark's guy, Russell Wilson, travels to Houston, Broncos, Texans. And by the way, if you said a couple of weeks ago this is going to matter for the AFC wild card, people would have called you nuts.
This is how's that? This is the old versus the new. Let's just call it what it is. You got aged Russell Wilson versus the young stallion CJ Stroud, who has been more impressive every week he has played the game. He's made plenty of mistakes, but kid's a rookie. I expect him to make mistakes, but he's learning from them. He's turned Nico Collins and Tank Dell into two, I'm not going to say two tier one receivers, but definitely two tier twos. He's
Tank Dell is tank, man.
The run game is a little bit weak. Devin Singletary is better out of the backfield, meaning out of pass catching, than he is as a running back. So I think they're lacking there. Then let's fast forward it over to the Broncos. You got Russell Wilson, who was traded for the entire team, because this was going to be the guy with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams going to lead them to the promised land. This just proves to you not all old people can still do old people things. So to me, this is going to be a great game. And I would never thought this would be, like Mike said, a contest for the wild card, but it actually is. But I look for CJ Stroud to light up the board today. Another 400-yard performance, but the score is going to be closer. 28-24, Houston.
Ooh, okay.
Mhm.
Dan?
Broncos, Texans. I love this matchup for the Broncos, man. They are playing so much better. Russell Wilson is back to being Russell Wilson status. And we knew he was vindicated when Nathaniel Hackett was fired. So I'm glad that it took a while, but Sean Payne figured it out. So I'm glad about that. And Houston just lost a very emotional game to the Jaguars. Not saying it won't affect them much, but now they're kind of desperate to get back on that winning track. So maybe Denver caught them at the right time. I think Denver's going to win this one, and it'll be a close one too. These are two good teams. These are two really good teams.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Dan, because of the experience of Russell Wilson, the experience of Sean Payton against the inexperience of not only CJ Stroud, but D'Amico Ryans being in his first year as a head coach. He's coached in big games as a coordinator, never as a head coach. I'm very fascinated to see how they line this up defensively, Houston.
Yeah.
Because they got a guy named Derek Stingley Jr. in the secondary, who they took, I think, 3rd overall 2 years ago. Now you're going to probably match him up on Cortland Sutton, which should be a great matchup. But then you got Judy and see how things work. Very intriguing game. I kind of wish, I know I'm asking for a lot. This game could have been flexed into prime time and I wouldn't have complained. I know NBC loves Mahomes, but Mahomes just got flexed out of a Monday night game in a couple of weeks. So
Because
shout out
there's
to
actually
Patriots for
good
that.
football coming up. There's a lot of good football coming up.
Yeah, this is a good game. Very good game. Yeah, a couple of others. Lions Saints. The Lions, Mark, they need to rebound after a Thanksgiving debacle.
Rightful odds.
Yeah,
dreadful coaching too, which is un-Dan Campbell like.
Very.
He needs more soup.
It was just a slaughter from the go. Goff was unGoff like. There was no consistency, whether it was in the run game, the pass game, and the defense for the 3rd straight week had been a letdown. Yeah. I mean, there were catches that were made that were lobs. Dan could have made these catches and run them back for touchdowns.
I have good hands too.
To me, Jordan Love got a lot of love from the NFL gods that game. Be it may, the Green Bay Packers defeated Detroit. Knocked Detroit off their high ladder a little bit. And you want to know what? I think that's going to humble them up a little bit because they're still in control of their own destiny. They're at 8-3. They're playing the 5-6 New Orleans Saints. They need Gibbs and Montgomery to help control the clock, and they need St. Brown and Laporta to keep drives going. You do that, Detroit wins this game in a monster blowout.
Dan?
Detroit needs to win this game. The Saints are terrible. Derek Carr is bad. Offense is bad. Defense is okay. New Orleans is not a good team. You want to get back on track, get right. This is the game to do it. If Detroit's defense gives you another stinker again, I'm going to start getting worried about Detroit. And you have to. Not saying playoffs is probably there for them. Division's probably there for them. I don't worry about that. But, the NFC, this proves the NFC is terrible. I mean, the NFC is getting worse here. So can you imagine Detroit going on a terrible streak at the wrong time? Be brutal for them.
I mean, to that point, Dan, I think we can agree. I'm not going to include Detroit here for a minute. I think we can all agree there's 3 teams in the NFC that could win the Super Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
or at least appear in the Super Bowl. That's the top tier of the NFC.
Yeah.
Detroit's probably that first team on the second tier right now. But if they can listen, if they don't look good again this week, this would be the 3rd straight game they don't look good because they weren't good against the Bears 2 weeks ago, and then they had a debacle last week against the Packers.
Well, I think that the most humbling experience by
Yeah,
far.
they've never been here.
Yeah. So they I'm telling you right now, this is a big game for them just to prove people, hey, look, we are for real. We are a serious contender. But you got to ball out. You have to ball out. And I don't know what Dan Campbell has up his sleeve because I think part of it, I think, is also the league kind of figured them out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be a thing. You know, just because the teams are not very good doesn't mean that they can't figure you out.
The best part of this team is their offensive line.
Yeah.
Oh, that line gives Goff so much time.
Just today, it's about that offensive line. Just maul people. That has to be the way.
Goff seems bored there. We need to challenge him more because he has not played well.
No, they need to get him going early. They need to get Amon-Ra St. Brown going early. And the defense has to play better. For the Saints, listen, I know you could still win the NFC South. You stink. Fire Dennis Allen. Fire Pete Carmichael. I don't care who's the coach next year. It can't be Dennis Allen. So I thought Derek Carr was the missing link. That was wrong of me.
But you know what? I feel like Derek Carr. I think the coaching has been terrible with Derek Carr. And
no, I agree. I think the coaching has been terrible. That's my point.
Derek Carr has not. Obviously, he last couple of years has not proven his case either. So we obviously have to give him the same amount of criticism. But I feel like the coaching's been terrible.
Oh, the coaching's horrible in New Orleans. They party too much at Mardi Gras. They're still drunk.
Way too much on Mardi Gras. Yeah.
All right. Another game, wild card implications, both conferences. We got the Browns and the Rams, and Mark's guy, Joe Flacco, playing for the Browns.
Joe Flacco. I mean, when he was with the Ravens, you know, when I was young that one time, now, when he played
back
during
in my day, Joe Flacco.
Back in my day, when Joe Flacco was playing,
Browns.
he led the Ravens to a Super Bowl. Now, Joe Flacco made his name in this game as a Super Bowl winner, a team leader, and a journeyman. And he's still trying to prove, like Tom Brady was able to do playing to his 40s. He's saying he still can do it. I just hope they don't carry the man out of there in bits and pieces because I watched him run and move when he was doing it with the Jets, and he really couldn't run or move. So,
well, part
I'm going to
of
go
that
right
was,
to you, Dan, on this 1 second.
Part of that was the defense offensive line. Part of that was the offensive line and their lack of protection of any quarterback.
How's this for a comeback though? You get to play Aaron Donald in your first game of the season.
Oh my god! But then part of it, he's a statue. He's a statue. Look,
the statue of Flacco.
Look, I think Joe Flacco's the right guy to be starting for the Browns because the Browns don't have a quarterback, so they desperately needed one, and they brought one in, and it was the right move by the Browns. But the dude hasn't really taken a snap since the last week of the regular season, last season.
Right.
So, that's a long time without even getting contact. That I'll be kind of worried about if you're the Browns, but definitely from a perspective of veteran guy, knows how to run an offense, knows how to command an offense. I think this is a good move.
You're gonna get a heavy dose of Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt today.
Oh yes.
And flip sided to the Rams, who are 5-6 and right in the thick of things in the NFC wildcard. And I made this point this week on Wishbone. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. the Rams are the one wild card team outside of the Dallas Cowboys you're not going to want to see in the playoffs.
It depends on the health of Matthew Stafford.
Well,
And
they're not making the playoffs if Matthew Stafford gets hurt. That's
right.
all.
Well,
Yeah.
he's come back from I believe it was that thumb. He had a thumb injury, and now he's back in and playing. I mean, he's got Pook, he's got Coop, but they're both injured. They're both questionable. They're playing today, but this team, I hope, will make it to the playoffs with the amount of brutal hits they've been taking and stuff like that. You also have to hand it out to Khalil Williams. Running the ball has been absolutely phenomenal when he's healthy, but he's been down twice this season. So it depends on which Rams team actually makes the playoffs, would I worry about it.
All right, very quickly, we got two others, but there's one I want to spend more time on than the other. We got Chiefs Packers. It's the Sunday night game. Packers are another team, 5-6, alive in the wild card race, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs.
Chiefs are going to win this one. They have a lot to prove, and they're just going to beat up on a very weak team. And sorry to say that to our president, Patchy, who's probably just slit his hand with another knife while he was cutting a squid. But as he heard me say that, but the Packers are going to be demolished, and Taylor Swift will now be on the sidelines cheerleading. I understand.
Oh, great. Wonderful. No Aaron Jones tonight for the Packers either.
No.
So. All right. Dan, anything on the game tonight?
Here's the deal. Jordan loves cooking. He's starting to really, really show some flashes of some greatness there. But ultimately, the Chiefs are going to be too much for the Packers.
I'll say this because I agree with you on the Jordan Love thing. Watson and Dobbs, if only they had a real number one wide receiver, that would really help open up this offense. But, listen, it's like if they didn't have Devontae Adams, what would they do? But,
But it's going to be a close game, though. I really do.
Yeah. No, I agree. The Packers are playing pretty well. The Chiefs fell behind 14-0 last week to the Raiders, and I was scared for them. Now they came back and wound up whooping the Raiders, but need a good start tonight if you're Kansas City. All right, then the game of the day. How this wasn't Sunday Night Football, I'll never understand.
Could have been.
NFC title game rematch between Mark's two favorite teams. You got the 49ers, you've got the Eagles, and I cannot wait.
I'm sorry, America.
About the game? How can you?
No, that was for one for each team.
Who do you hate the most, though?
Philadelphia.
Okay.
I hate Philadelphia.
I really thought that sentence was going to end with Mike for saying what he said.
No. Let's look at this game for what it is. Let's forget that I'm a Cowboys fan. This is what it is. It is the game of the week, and it is going to be a very high-scoring game because I don't think either defense is going to show up here. Not that the Eagles' defense is really their most productive part anyway. With the loss of the San Francisco safety, I butchered the poor man's name, and I'm sorry. Hofagama, I apologize. And
Troy Polamalu?
No, not Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, the guy who looks like
Polamalu. No, the guy who looks like Polamalu, yeah. But I'm looking for Jalen Hurts to lose this game, and I want Jalen Hurts to lose bad. I want him to leave on a bad note. No, seriously, I look for Jalen Hurts to really control this team today, and I think it's going to be a lot done with DeAndre Swift, using him with play action, and that as the Chiefs are vulnerable to stuff like that. But let's not forget, you have AJ Brown on one side and Donta Foreman on another side, and you get 20 plays out of Julio Jones, who in his little time already has 2 touchdowns. So you can't take this Eagles team lightly unless Jalen Hurts is not in there. Control Hurts, you control the Eagles. The 49ers, this is Brock Purdy's game. Yeah, he proved himself against Dallas, whooped our asses. This is his second and final chance. He has to come out against the Eagles in what's going to be a very hostile stadium, a very wet game. It's going to be pouring there. And you know how Veterans Field look. I mean, it's trash in the weather. So I'm looking, and I'm going to call it right here. I'm calling the San Francisco 49ers win this game 17-14. Very low scoring. I know I said if no both defenses aren't going to show up, but I want to say it's going to be low scoring.
I think Mark is right. I think that both they're not going to show up. It's going to be high scoring. But here's the thing that Philly's going to regret doing. It's the brotherly shove. Because I think the 49ers, with the revenge tactic that they're going to have, they've been waiting for this for a whole year. They're going to find a way to stop the brotherly shove.
So you think San Francisco has the formula?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then that just means that Jalen Hurts has to find other ways to score touchdowns, which I think he's very capable of doing.
Well, I don't disagree with you. Look, the kid is a phenomenal quarterback.
Yeah, I think it'll be a high scoring game, probably in the high 20s for sure. Maybe low 30s. And it'll be San Francisco that comes out on top. San Francisco has on their minds how they were duped out of the game.
Let's not forget in the NFC title game, Brock Purdy came out of that game because needed elbow surgery, turned out. So that played a role in the NFC title game. Mark, you talked about the Eagles and what they have with Smith and Brown, Jones down by the schoolyard. Flip side it for a second. I had Christian McCaffrey. I had Debo. I had George Kittle. Oh, and by the way, Brandon Ayuk is having the best year of his career.
Oh, yeah.
The Niners have the weapons, too. And the Eagle defense has not been the same thing that it was last year.
And that's why if you control both quarterbacks, which we know both defenses are very capable blitzing defenses, as they have shown throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the game is going to be won. The game is going to be won by whichever defensive line gets through and disrupts, whether it's Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts. That's where this game is going to be won.
You're looking at the top 2 teams, I think, when you're looking trenches.
This is the battle of the bulge right here.
Oh, this is going to be.
A little history with a shout out to one of our members who did a great history project. So I'm very proud of him for that project. Dan knows who I'm talking about.
But I got to be honest. I kind of wish it wasn't raining at Lincoln Financial Field today because I want to see the 2 teams go. No issues. Let's go. Thunderdome.
I want to see this now as a coaching matchup. How do you got to win this game now in a whole different scheme? So it's gonna be a filthy day in that stadium.
Yeah. All right. Last piece of last segment, and then we'll call it. Mark, fantasy player of the day.
CM7. Will not change it. Christian McCaffrey.
All right. Dan?
The 49ers, let's see. I stick with the 49ers too. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy.
Ooh.
He'll go off today.
I'm going to go in a different game entirely. Austin Eckler. The Patriots stink. The Chargers need a get-right game. If the Chargers don't win, don't let Brandon Staley on that plane.
Wow.
All right. That'll do it for this edition of the Sunday Sideline Report here on the SIN YouTube channel. Check us out every Sunday. We're live. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for great blogs, logs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Follow us on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, at SInsanityReal. And Mark, anything on the dugout of Millwood?
Yes, everybody, if you all read the podcast regarding the Halpern did receive a hot case. We confirmed it. We did have a hot case. 11 101s will be listed with Top Notch Sports Club on eBay tomorrow. If you want any of them, there's a beautiful. If you go read the blog, there's a beautiful dual auto of Mariano Rivera and Pedro Martinez. But it's a 101, ladies and gentlemen. Go bid. Let's go.
Go big or go home. For Mark, Dan, I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Sunday Sideline Report, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood. Enjoy the games, everyone, and we'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy football and namaste.